not going to give me a hard time, but I might be giving everybody a hard time because I'm going to start with a provocation to the audience, which is, when did you last sit at home waiting for a small package to come and say to somebody, I can't go out, I'm waiting for a delivery? Because if you did that, it makes you a high street hypocrite as well, just like me. And one of the dynamics of the society we're living in now is that shift from real places, physical places, to the virtual world we live in. You know, at its very worst, we might say our kids, often our teenage kids, are growing up online. They're not growing up in real places. So when I looked at the idea of, is the high street declining, then part of what I started to think about was the decline in terms of it being a real physical place. That place which in your mind you go, that's where we'll meet. It's obvious. Well, it's less obvious if it's not in people's minds. And the people whose minds it's not in are very often those people who are who really ought to be there, who are perhaps marginalised. And again, talking about kids, but maybe also talking about the elderly and other groups of people who should find that the daily flow of the ebb and flow of their daily lives brings them there, but doesn't. So I'm a designer, and normally if I was to talk to an audience about high streets, I would almost certainly be drawing or showing you images. But I had a conversation yesterday with a young man who interviewed me for his university radio station. And after that, I asked him if he used his, whatever constituted for him, his local high street. And his answer was really interesting. He said he doesn't like browsing in person. He doesn't like fluorescent lights in shops. And he doesn't really like brands either. He feels he's not part of it. And he really dislikes the chit-chat he has to have with people who work in shops and bars and other places like that. He doesn't feel he can do that chit-chat. And but he does go out quite often to the same place in the evening when it's transformed into a place that's right for him and his cohort. So he'll sit with his mates on those tables under the scruffy canopies that look so scruffy by day and are transformed into the place he wants to be in by night. And he will have these lovely conversations, he will feel part of it, and it becomes his place. So what we're talking about is something that's not just shifting in its general, overall importance to us and its necessity to us and our community, but also places that have these daily shifts, weekly shifts, that kind of live a life of their own. And the question about how we design good high streets is, and possibly the reason why many of the reports on this have failed, is because they're just not picking up on all the nuances that they need to and forgetting the granularity of the question, which is as much a societal question as it is a built environment question. Within a built environment, there are lots and lots of ways of looking at places that could be better and trying to work out how to make them better. And they all take money, and they all take funding, and they all take time, and they all take the will of increasingly large groups of people to find a consensus and do them. And nearly all of those things are not easy to come by and often missing and constrained by a planning system that lets shops turn into houses. But one of the things we might need to recognise about how to make high streets and their ilk better for us as a society is to think about all of the things that they could provide for you. And in thinking about this, it's got a few places in mind. Ulverston, where I used to live in the Lake District, which at that time had a sense that you could get anything on Market Street in Ulverston. I could buy a mattress, or I could buy some Cumberland sausage. Or if there was something I couldn't find in a shop, I could ask somebody, and by Market Thursday next week, they'd have it. And so we've lost that sense of it being not just a transactional place, but a place where you curate what you want because you ask for it. There were community notice boards where I could both read the notices other people had put up and feel part of that community, or put my own notice up, again, making things happen there. And some of the things that stop this happening are things like the homogenization of high streets, the way that so many of these places often look the same, because the same brands with the same shop fronts, the same window display, and even the same images that you've just seen on your screen or your telly advertising things to you then appear again to give you more of the same. They're bland, they're boring, and we're filtering it out. We're not wanting to go there. So that's sort of stopping anything interesting popping up. The proliferation of empty shop fronts is a problem. But I think it's not just the shop fronts that are a problem. I might come back to that, but I wanted to mention that I don't think it's just a ground floor issue. I really think this is a whole facade issue on the high street. And I'll give you a couple of examples. If a high street's going to be pedestrianised, and there are lots of good reasons in areas for doing that, one of the things that needs to happen is that you're going to need, in the summertime, shade, in the wintertime, shelter, and a great thing to provide that is this nostalgic canopy. The sense that if I've started at one end and got off my public transport or parked my car in a 20-minute space for free, I can walk down the high street and I'm covered up under the shade. Or in the summer, it's not going to rain on me. And things that we do to shape it really work. On the first floor, one of the great ideas from an old client of mine on Chiswick High Street was that first floor use is fantastic for old people's homes. They sit in the windows, on their balconies, they look at the high street, they provide passive surveillance, they're interested, and they feel that they're part of high street life. This intergenerational issue is really important, but really solvable with some of the things that high streets can provide. And I'll end on the idea that a high street is really a place to be yourself. After you've made all your online purchases, you're not going to sit at home and show off your clothing to yourself in your bedroom. The Italian idea of passeggiata strikes me as being a lovely way of bringing back the idea that we do want to be seen, we want to be out there. And it might be at midnight when the pub or the club spills out. It might be in the morning. But the sense of parade, not just of a parade of shops, but a parade of people, might bring back some of the life that we need in high streets.
It's great. Thank you very much.
Some really